We're back. Second intermission report here, MyHockeyLive.com. I'm Jake Levin alongside Scott Barbosa of ESPN's Boston. Scott, welcome aboard.
How you doing?
All right, Scott, I've been well, and it's that time of year. We're talking bracketology. You know, not quite March Madness bracketology. We're talking Super 8 bracketology in particular. A lot of teams have already sewn up berths to their respective sectional tournaments, whether it's D1 North, D1 South, etc. But let's talk about the Super 8 and who is an absolute lock to make it, teams that should be in, depending on what happens in the next couple of games, and teams that still have to play their way in. We'll start with the locks, and I think BC High, Malden Catholic, St. John's Prep, Pope Francis, they're all in no matter what. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think those are the top 4 seeds of your tournament that you're looking in. I think those teams really this week are playing for seeding, obviously. Right. BC High in this tournament down here, we'll see them later tonight, and then, of course, huge one with Malden Catholic and Pope Francis coming up on Wednesday out in Springfield. That's going to be must-watch appointment viewing. And then St. John's Prep, even though they're not in, one of these holiday week tournaments, they have a couple really important games this week because they're playing Braintree and Framingham, 2 Bay State League teams that are trying to get into the back end of the seedings here. So St. John's Prep will have a couple of tests there too. And obviously, again, I think that number 1 seed is, pretty much in play between, I think you're looking at BC High and Malden Catholic there.
Sure.
But then, from 3 to 6, I think there could be a little bit of wiggle room there.
So let's talk about some of the lesser-known powerhouses this year. Maybe St. Mary's of Lynn and Austin Prep. Teams that I'd say they should be in the field. It would take an epic collapse for them to not get in at this point, right?
Yeah, I think Austin Prep, obviously, at this point, the last couple of weeks here, maybe not playing their best hockey. I think at this point, talking to Coach Finicaro after that, a tremendous game against Reading here the other
game
night,
of the day on Saturday.
Which is unbelievable. I didn't think they gave perhaps the effort that they quite wanted. Reading's speed obviously was a huge issue for them all night. They had lost to Arlington Catholic previous to this tournament, so AC's really kind of played their way into the conversation a little bit here in the last 10 days or so. But then also St. Mary's of Lynn, obviously, they're going to have a huge opportunity as well. They play Acton-Boxborough on coming up here tomorrow, but then later this week, they have the opportunity to play either Malden Catholic or Pope Francis out in Springfield. So that's a big one for them as well. Obviously, AP looks like they will be the Catholic Conference champions. That AC loss delayed things a little bit for them. They still get to play Archbishop Williams here. But I think those 2 teams, I think either way, on any given year in the Catholic Central League, I think the top 2 teams, unless it's a real down year, which doesn't often happen in that league, I think you're looking at 2 teams coming in from that conference.
Okay. And so then let's talk about the schools that still have some work left to do, and it's mostly public schools. We talk about the Middlesex teams, Burlington, Framingham, and Chelmsford. They're all up in the Cahoon tournament coming up tomorrow night and Thursday night, both on My Hockey Live. Then we also have Hingham, and then Central Catholic, I know, not a public school, but they're in a public league in the MVC DCL. Probably those 5 all still have some work to do. And Reading, of course, that we see down here. Of those 6 teams, who do you see maybe getting in and maybe having to settle for their sectional tournaments?
I think really the $25,000 question seemingly every year is the Middlesex League, and this year has been, it's been rock'em sock'em robots all year long. Winchester and Arlington really carried the first half of the season, I thought, and then Winchester kind of has fallen off here in the last couple of weeks. Arlington, obviously, that 7-1 thumping from Burlington, I really think kind of put them in a position here. That was a wake-up call for them, and I think that really kind of pushed Burlington forward. One of the teams, I think, really the closest thing to a lock coming in with a public school is Burlington. Yeah. Obviously, they play outside of that murderous Liberty division, which those teams have just been, again, exchanging victories all year long. I think Burlington gets in, and I think the question becomes, who's the second team that sneaks in there? Woburns played very well down the stretch here. Reading, I got to think, with what the way that they've played, and playing against AP the other night, and the way that they played and came out and skated, and again, an emphatic victory here against Falmouth earlier today. I think Reading belongs. I think the way that team has come along, they really have everything that you're looking for in the pedigree of a Super 8 team. That top line with Thompson and the Tobin brothers is pretty impressive, and I think they can stick with anybody else in the state, which I think is an important thing too, because I think when the committee looks at some of these decisions, they want teams that are going to be able to, if you're going to be getting into a playing game and being one of those 7 or 8 seeds, They're going to be getting BC High or Malden Catholic. So let's get teams in there that are going to be able to stick with those teams. And I think that's really what you're looking for. And then, again, aside from that, Middlesex decision is really the Bay State. And I think you go with one team there, probably is Framingham. Again, you know, the tournament tends to be a what have you done for me lately kind of tournament. Framingham holds, you know, a win over Braintree in the last week here, and then obviously they get Burlington, as you mentioned, tomorrow. So that's a huge game for them. If they're able to come away with a win there, I think that might honestly be enough to get them in. And then, again, the X factor, the DCL MVC, which has been, you know, Central Catholic just year after year, has just either been a top 6 seed or, you know, more often in the recent years been a play-in team and has always been in this tournament, and you kind of expect them coming in. But the real, if you really want to talk about an X factor in all of this, has been Jake Wise, who's obviously over in Lillehammer playing in the Junior Olympics, hasn't been with Central Catholic, and without him, I mean, they're just obviously a different team, obviously a Boston University commit coming into his high school career. So, I mean, he's a game changer, and that's kind of the X factor there. Obviously, with Central Catholic, it's how do you kind of gauge that team? Are you looking at that team and saying, well, this is what he is with Jake Weiss in the lineup? They're a Super 8 team. Without him in the lineup, I don't think they are. So they're going to have some real work to do this week, and obviously Andover's kind of played themselves into the conversation a little bit with the win there. Yep. And then, you know, talking about teams that have played their way back on, Arlington Catholic here, I said, you know, with that win against Austin Prep, they're, you know, that frenetic first period here, but they're sticking with Hingham very much here in this game. So I think you got a large Arlington Catholic into that you know, kind of scenario as well. And hey, you know, it's February. Whenever it gets to vacation week, and obviously this year, you know, we have another extra week before we get to
more hockey, the
Super
better.
8 Sunday. But you know, it's going to be a real photo finish here. I really think more so than in perhaps at least, you know, when I've started doing this with ESPN Boston in the last 5-6 years that we've done it, I think this is going to be truly the toughest year to gauge between 6 and 12. You know, the Coaches Association gives their 12 teams to the committee before that meeting is happening. And I think it's going to be really tough to kind of differentiate 6 to 12, and really a couple teams beyond that too, those 13, 14 going into 12. There's going to be some pretty good teams there that are going to be returning to their respective.
There's still 19 teams on the watch list, so we'll see what happens. He's Scott Barbosa, and we'll be with him again, I'm sure, either Wednesday or Thursday. We'll do some updated bracketology back here. Until then, we're going to kick it back and take a little break before the start of the third period, where Hingham leads Arlington Catholic 2-1. Scott, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Jake.
Appreciate
it was a pleasure. Thanks, man.
Have a good one.